Welcome to the LA Business Podcast, a forum for business owners and senior executives to share the experiences about the elements that drive their success. Your host is Robert Brill, CEO of Brill Media.co, an Inc. 500 company delivering the power of hyperlocal advertising. Robert writes for Forbes, Inc. and ad trade publications. Our goal is to bring you the stories about successes and failures of people who are making big things happen in marketing, entrepreneurship, and management.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the LA Business Podcast. Today, our guest is Andrew Cohen, CEO of Evoke New York. Andrew, thank you for being here. Can you tell us a little bit about Evoke, what you are, what you do, and why clients work with you?
Sure. Thanks, Robert, for having us. Evoke is a digital transformation company. We've been in business since 1997. We actually rebranded as Evoke in 2005, and we focus heavily on mid to large size corporations, enterprise companies, really working with best-in-class technology to help companies really streamline processes, increase productivity across their corporate structure. Evoke works with pretty much every line of business within an organization, and our projects kind of range from custom application development, utilization of platforms, low-code, no-code solutions, as well as mobile app development, and well as responsive sites. Really, the main thing why companies like to work with us is we can take the technology with always a focus on the end user in mind, because we have a strong discipline of our history from design and user experience. So Evoke can pretty much handle that full suite of services, from creation, consultative work, from the design and development to output, as well as the support for any kind of client's needs.
So I'm really interested. I've heard the term thrown around, digital transformation. And,
Sure.
And what is? I have some opinions about what it might be or what it could be, but tell us what digital transformation is from your perspective.
Well, for example, I mean, a lot of the projects we work with in the past have been traditional, just using platforms like, let's say, Microsoft SharePoint, and just really making a better utilization of that platform for a corporation, so it's highly utilized from an end user perspective. However, with digital transformation, we look in layering in modern technologies such as machine learning and AI. So we can actually allow the systems to help automate maybe common tasks to help companies increase things as simple as onboarding a new employee. From something that might have taken weeks to get done, it can be done in a matter of minutes to maybe a day. So by utilizing these tools that are out there, which are what we call the low code and sometimes no code tools, you can kind of really create a transformation for a company on how they did their normal business to elevating into taking advantage of the modern way of doing business.
So you started the business in 1997, correct?
Yes, correct.
What precipitated what got you to the point where you said you need to start this business, and what was your original thesis for the business?
Good, that's a very good question. Actually, my first moved to Manhattan from North Carolina in 1994, and I was pretty much freelancing out some of the big 4A agencies like Ogilvy and Mather, JWT, just doing design and digital work and creative departments. And after a while, turning down several jobs, I decided just to start it up in my own apartment. And really, we initially started out the company heavily focused on 2D design and 3D design. And back then there was really no internet. So our focus was really on broadcast graphics, traditional graphic design, and very heavily on the user, UI kind of a design background. And then as we started moving into more of the web started taking place and taking hold, we did another slight pivot to that and shifted to incorporating web development into our portfolio. And that's when the whole rich media website development kind of boom started happening. And I always had a need to keep looking at what the horizon was for what we were doing. So current state versus future state was always something that was paramount to the company, to always be ready to help move and add service offerings. So as we were doing web development and rich media, we started doing technology. We started doing our custom application development. And from then we just kind of kept slowly, evolving over the course of the history of the company. It's 20 years now. And it's just something that allowed us to see what's out there, see what kind of technologies were not going to be there for the next future thinking, understanding what might be the things that we want to incorporate, and then hiring really well to make sure that we could bring in the right people to help bring those things to market, bring those types of technologies and services. So background always being a service company with technology focused lately. That started for more like the 2005 with the rebranding as Evoke. And we just kind of have been building on top of that since then.
So we're really interested, and I personally am very interested in how companies scale their business. Like what's, I hate to call it magic because it's never magic. It's usually a combination of preparedness, opportunity, it's foresight, it's the creation of something that is interesting. Are there any inflection points around your business where looking back in it, you said, well, I didn't realize it at the time, but I actually ended up creating this really incredibly valuable service or offering, or we're in the right place at the right time. What are some of those inflection points, and tell us about that?
Well, we were always, the way we were structured originally, probably even in the early 2000s, was a heavy dependency on local talent. We still have a good size, a bit of a local talent in terms of doing the work, but we started incorporating, offshoring in terms of the ability to do the development work that we needed done, R&D and development. But we were always at the kind of, mercy of vendor relationships. So we were working with third-party companies that were incorporated on our brand, but they were their own separate entities. So accountability wasn't as high as we'd like, and also the quality of service was never at the level that we were expecting. So that was always an issue. So you talk about inflection point. Well, the big change that we did as early as 2014, we opened up our own technology center in Belarus, in Minsk, and it's called Evoke Systems. And that allowed us to build our own tech center that Evoke New York company is the primary vendor. In essence, that we did that. That was the reason why we did it. So we have our accountability. We could scale a team as we needed to, and then just, build around that and build the expertise and the level of excellence that we want to achieve. The things that we talk about and preach here, now we can kind of, since 2014, deliver on that promise 100%. Versus not knowing sometimes what you get when you work with a vendor partner. Not that they were bad, it was just it was inconsistency. Yeah, it was inconsistency. So we've gotten rid of all that now.
So is process a big part of that?
Yes.
That level of quality that you're delivering?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that was something that took a little time, even from 2014 until the last couple of years, to sort it out. But the process, the culture there, incorporating those standards that we want to have here and that our clients expect from us. Since we work with some of the best companies in the world, they have a real high standard. And so we want to always meet and exceed that. So we've built that culture overseas, and how we hire there is very structured in terms of not only the hiring process is very detailed and very difficult to get a job with Evoke Systems and part of Evoke, but also just the process of how we do work, from the way they record information, the way they capture requirements, all the kind of things that steps along the way of a delivery. Always with delivery with the end goal in mind to keep things on time and on client budget. So yeah, the process is something that was really important to maintain. And like I said, it's something we've been preaching for so long, but now the execution against that is better than we've ever done in the history of this company.
So how do you manage, I mean, you're in New York, how do you manage people on the other side of the on the other side of the world?
Good news is technology kind of has limits the distance in a way. Obviously there's a time difference we have. There's anywhere from 6 to 7 hours ahead of us, which is an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is we're pretty much a 24/7 shop. The disadvantage is after 1 o'clock here, those teams over there are pretty much offline. So what we do every day is my VP of technology, who's also a partner of the company, he's here headquartered in New York with me. His name is Ivo Utev. And Ivo has been with me since about 2006, 2007. He's from Bulgaria, but he understands Russian language. However, we talk about process, one of the requirements for hiring is they have to speak English. And then we also do English lessons over there for the team in Belarus. So Ivo does daily stand-ups with the team from every morning for about 30 minutes, goes through every kind of project we're working on, any concerns they have. And if there's additional needs that need his expertise from an architectural or technology perspective, they can do those calls offline or communication through the tools we use. I mean, for collaboration and tools, we use things like Microsoft Teams. And then in terms of what they do for their process, they use everything from cloud-based solutions so we can see where projects sit, issues, concerns throughout the whole life cycle.
So when we spoke earlier this week,
Sure.
you mentioned. So now I want to turn to scaling and building business, right? Like one of the key missions for our listeners is I want to drive ideas of how companies scale their business. Like I'm sure that has changed throughout the years. In our business, everything changes every 3 to 6 months. Including some of our roles and some of the partners in the space. Like, what have you been noticing recently? And the first thing is, how did you identify, and do you have a repeatable sales methodology to begin with?
Okay, let's go with that first. Sales methodology is, something that's like, I think we talked earlier the week, and I mentioned that we didn't really have a sales staff here locally. I was really much doing all the business development from the company perspective pretty much for the life of the company. But this year, we've hired a team of 6 salespeople, sales professionals from different areas of the U.S., and they're out there actively working, not just the pipeline that they have from their existing history of what they did business, but also the types of leads that we're generating through multiple different marketing partners that we work with. So the goal is to basically keep them fed with the leads that we have, let them work their existing pipeline or opportunities there, and keep scaling as individuals so they can basically, really run strong with what their opportunities are. We're very aggressive in terms of how we pay our salespeople with the commission structure that we have. So the more they earn, the more they make, in terms of, there's no cap in terms of our commission structure. So that allowed them to be very excited about the opportunity here. Now, since it's new, the sales cycle is a little bit longer maybe than some of them are used to. We assume it's about a 90-day sales cycle, but it's really probably closer to about 5 to 6 months for new clients. So that's something that we've rolled out, and they're going from different types of opportunities. So what we used to really be focused maybe on about 3 or 4 core industries, we've opened that up now based on who these people are, where their backgrounds are, and they've incorporated that into our service offering here. And for example, we've just really rolled out our own cybersecurity division just because one of our salespeople has a strong background in cybersecurity. And now we've actually facilitated acquiring 3 new accounts, all focused on an area that Evoke wasn't into probably 2 years ago. But now we've been slowly dabbling into it. Now we're really launching that division separately. So it's kind of unique. I'm taking advantage of where their backgrounds are, incorporated into our culture.
So that's really interesting. Before you hired your salespeople and you were the primary stakeholder for business development, what did that look like? And was it just basically leveraging your relationships? How did you do that how did you do that?
Well, we were fortunate that we've had most of the business development we did was not from cold calling nature. That just wasn't really my style. Obviously, it was more just networks and referrals and things of that. It's how we got brought into the different client relationships we have. Sometimes we were brought in by another agency to be their development partner. And then when that agency would roll out, we would stick. So one of the strengths of our company is we get a client, they pretty much stay a client for life. We've never had an issue where we've been removed from an account. So once we're in for a long time. However, that's the negative too, because that doesn't mean we have enough client activity. So with all the new activity we're going through with the new people, we've really opened up from just my core. I mean, I have a lot of great relationships, all the history of doing business, and I've worked with some great companies, but it's limiting because I'm just one person. And without the efforts from my natural background wasn't being a sales professional. I was a former college athlete. I was a fine art major. So, a guy gets on the phone, it's just not my take. I'm really good in a room doing the presentations, but that was the limiting factor for us for doing business development. So it was a mix, now we're bringing in all this new activity, which we didn't have before. And it just opens up a lot more opportunities for the company and helps us for our future growth, where we are, where we want to be in the next 2 to 3 years.
So that's interesting. Your path is similar to mine in that
Mm-hmm.
we also the primary sort of way that we generate business is by forming partnerships with people in my network.
Right.
And we're also now going out aggressively into the world as a larger sales organization.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you pick the beginning of 2019 to make this transition? What had changed?
Well, I was actually starting to, I was looking at where we were. I saw that as a company's growth, there wasn't really stagnation, but I saw that there was just not enough upward mobility in terms of what I wanted it to be for as long as we've been in business. So I knew some change had to happen. So, just saying you're a change agent, but then actually not doing anything about it was just something that didn't resonate with me. So I looked at where I could get into support that could help us get to where we wanted to be. So I did a real hard look at the company and saw what we were doing. I saw the year in, year out. It's a nice set of business, but we're passive of the infant stage of a company. We should be in a little bit more mature than we are in terms of, like, if you look at a financial level where we should be.
Sure.
So that made some hard decisions. I had to take a look at, I can't do it all, from the sales point of view. Understand there's people who do this a lot better than I do. And I believe it wasn't like pride of ownership. I didn't want to just be the only guy doing sales here. Just didn't really know how to even go find the right salespeople. So I looked at I did bring in a consultant that helped shape some of the sales ad message. So when we started looking for the right salespeople, we really wanted top producers. And so that's how we shaped our kind of marketing to find the salespeople we were really actively looking for.
So what kind of consultant is that? Like, what is it, like an ad agency? Who does, like I didn't even know that there are sales consultant people who craft messages like that. That's interesting.
Yeah, he's he's an individual. It's a coaching consultancy company. And, for me to ever admit that I needed some help there was a big leap, and I never really had someone I could say was a mentor. And I'm not saying this consultant was a mentor to me, but he did help shape and shift the focus of what I was thinking and where I wanted to be. So yeah, definitely it's something I could probably share with you, his information offline. But in terms of what he did for the company, we worked first, probably in 2018, we started working together. And then I looked at bringing him in at a little bit higher level, brought him as my interim VP of sales for a 6-month term. That's where we could work together really tightly to kind of reshape some of the overall message of what Evoke's promises in terms of our value proposition and where we serve and how we would differentiate ourselves from some of the large companies we work against. But really one of the targets was, can I get a sales organization underneath me? And that's where his expertise helped basically craft the ad. He helped work with me to help train the team. And then he's rolled out a couple months ago. And it's really just, we've been running, with the team as it is now. Currently, I'm still acting as the sales manager, VP of sales, whatever, in terms of that team. Sure. But I'll be promoting within or hiring another person to take over the team, probably within the next 6 months, just so I can focus on what I do, and then I can bring someone who's even better at me at the sales manager role.
So is the idea that this sales consultant comes in, gets really deeply embedded within the organization, understands from the inside what needs to happen, and then there's a transition plan so that he or she moves away from being, like, you don't want them to be an ongoing salesperson. You just want to craft the overall strategy.
Correct. They were not doing sales for the company. They were really helping just help hire the team, shape the team. They didn't make hire and fire decisions. They were just really there to help guide. And then once the team was on board, help train them up from different methodologies and processes that are in place. The people we hired are very seasoned salespeople, so some of it might have been redundant to them, but it was always good to have that kind of reinforcement that every day was a sales activity from an internal thing, where we've kept that as part of the company culture. So every Monday is our sales meeting. Every Wednesday we do a hot seat call. Every Friday is a best practice call with the team, and the whole team has to contribute to these things.
Wow.
And then I also have my calendar open every day from 9 to 10 for got a minute meetings with the team. So I've really structured my day. That's another thing the consultant helped me with, is my day is pretty much broken down I mean, I have availability throughout the day, but just I do have it structured very incrementally. So when I'm available, the team can grab me, but I don't want just them to call me out of the blue for God minutes, because that can interrupt other things that we're trying to do.
Sure.
So that's why the team has access to my calendar, and here's where they block it out. And it
So
helped to keep them aligned. Yeah, go ahead.
at what point in the life cycle of your business did you move away from doing the work that you're selling to going to being the business development person, that like two different roles,
Right.
8 hours in the day or 10 or whatever? Like how and when did you make that transition?
That's a really good question, because you hit it on the mark. I mean, I used to actually do the work. I used to do Photoshop work, After Effects, all the kind of cool stuff that people do a lot better than I do now. But I think I really always had that kind of probably in, I guess it was the late 90s, after we already incorporated, I started hiring. Once I started hiring people that I knew could just do it better than I could, I saw the capability of walking away from the computer and actually start focusing on the business and not be so worried about working on a file. So that was that transition happened fairly quickly for me, to bring in people, hire better people than me to do the work, and then focus on where my core strengths were. And that was an early stage thing for me, at least, move away from it.
And how do you ensure that that the DNA of the business still has your fingerprints on it, right? Like that's something that I've been thinking about, right? Like my company's called Brill Media, like, but I want to hire, and I have hired people who are smarter than me to run the day-to-day campaigns.
Sure.
How do you ensure that your fingerprint is on everything that happens?
I think I realized that releasing some of that, spreading it out, it's not a big problem. Obviously, from the point of view of the brand of the company, the figurehead of the company, the person who's out front, it's always my face. I'm the main first person they meet. The company's not named after me, but I think from a branding point of view, when you talk to Evoke, they know they have access to the CEO, and that's myself. Yeah. So in terms of how we've hired, we're looking for people. I'm not looking for so much like-minded. I mean, we want to hire the best of what they do. So but once they become part of the company, we try to incorporate them into the existing culture, and then also elicit information from where they came from, see if there's things that we want to basically bring into our culture. So the brand is evolving. In terms of the business, doesn't just say it's just about me and I have this kind of tight structure and control over it. I like the idea of the open structure. Obviously, there is a hierarchy and there is leadership and all those kind of different levels we're trying to incorporate in the business. But it's still, we have a very more fluid process, I feel like, and it's changing. The company's going to keep evolving and changing as long as we're in business. I feel like that's something that's important. And it allows us to also look for new opportunities and new technologies or new people without feeling like we're not, have to be the way we were 2 years ago or last year.
Absolutely. So it sounds like just as a recap, it sounds like process is very important. Mm-hmm. Getting a mentor or a coach or someone who has a different point of knowledge than you might have, very valuable for you in setting the sales strategy that you've deployed. Mm-hmm. And relying on your relationships to build the business. I think those are three very important and points of knowledge that entrepreneurs and business owners and executives should be paying attention to. If we switch briefly to one other point, you live in New York. What just as a closing point, I'm a foodie. I love really great food. What's the favorite food that comes to mind when I ask you, like, what do you love to eat in New York?
Oh, I've just always loved Italian food, and I don't know. Part of I think my senior year of college, I lived in Florence, Italy for the summer and painted over there. So every day I was waking up in Florence and having the best Italian food in the world. So I'm still a big Italian foodie, and just unfortunately where I live now, there's not too many great options. I'm outside of Manhattan. I lived in Manhattan for like 20 years, but now I'm up in the Hudson Valley. So limited in scale in terms of there, but the city's close enough that I can get there and find some great food when I need it.
Very good.
Yeah,
What have you found are some best practices for account-based marketing on LinkedIn?
well, what we're doing in terms of, we've worked with a couple of different companies, and one from the LinkedIn perspective, just totally that. It's just really kind of establish those connections first. There's there's about 6 to 7 touch points that the company was working on my behalf. Basically, it took control of my profile. I probably shouldn't tell this on this podcast, but in case they've been contacted, whoever's listening, it might have been me, but it might not have officially been me, but it was actually through my profile. But then obviously the connection happens, and they kind of invite them to a group that I maintain. And then after that, we try to set up a call. So there's multiple points. And once the call gets established, that's when I kind of stepped in. And then we do these things, what we do every call is called an innovation session. So within the 15 to 30 minute initial call, we're going to pretty much find an opportunity or a pain point from a client and see if there's an opportunity to work together. And within that period of that call, we know we can move it on down to the sales cycle of opportunity. If there's alignment, we'll move forward. If not, then nice to meet you and be good contact and friends going forward. Another relationship in terms of the email marketing we're doing is really kind of focused heavily on C-levels. And so we're really going after a lot of corporations that have very tight, what we call avatar in terms of the types of company size, the personality type, the target audience we're going after from a company of 1,000 to 5,000 employees, whether it's an EVP and up, those messages go directly to them. And it's a long form email where it gives them great information. We try to give some service before we even get engaged of what we've done, how we do it, and what that might mean for them. So a lot's in the messaging, and then the response rate's been really high. And we're booking about 10 to 12 booked meetings a month by utilizing these assistance services. And these are more than just a cold lead. They're pretty warm by the time you get on the call.
So let me ask, can I ask you some follow-ups on those?
Sure. Absolutely.
That's really interesting.
Sure.
So if I'm to understand correctly, the first sort of strategy that you're deploying is you're constantly connecting with people on LinkedIn
Yes.
through your profile. You direct people to a group. Is that group on LinkedIn?
Yes, we renamed it to the Northeast Executive Network, and it's called Streamlining Processes and Maximizing Productivity. So within that, we find articles, we post. We're going to eventually take that more than just a LinkedIn group and do offline kind of sessions and meetings as well. So the first part was just kind of building enough of a critical mass on LinkedIn in that group, and then we're going to take that to another level and start doing maybe these off-site kind of workshops and things of that nature.
So you invite people to this group, and then how does it jump from the group to a call?
Right. So once they connect with me, and then once we invite them to the group and they accept, there's a period of time, I believe it's like a week or so, then it kicks in again and starts requesting an opportunity that here's an article that I saw in my group that you might be interested in. Let me point out a couple of things in that article based on their profile. So from that kind of business intelligence, it starts kind of, we're actually doing a little research before we even communicate. And then we start asking for potential to do a call. I'm interested. And we're not limping in. We're trying to really say, look, we want to do business together in a way. And we say it in a proper way. But so they know the call is not some kind of call where we're just trying to do research, because that's not fair. Because once we give them the call, they know it's not a research call, it's a sales call. So we do kind of structure the LinkedIn kind of messaging in that tone.
Amazing. And then finally, you have a target audience of companies with 1,000 to 5,000 employees. And is that
right?
Are you running paid media there, or what do you how you said you sent them some long form messaging? Is that through email?
Well, yeah, that's mostly through email, and we work with companies much larger than that too. It's just I thought for these campaigns to be successful, the larger the organization, probably the harder to penetrate in terms of getting in there as a new vendor. So a company of that size, 1,000 to 5,000, or close to about $1 billion in revenue, we have more of a closer opportunity to talk to the C-level suite. We're not going to probably get that, obviously, at some of our big clients who work with our Fortune 500 companies. I mean, we know who they are, but they're not going to speak to us on in that type of message.
Sure.
So we're getting a lot of success from going to the CEOs, the CIOs, CTOs, all those levels. And they're doing calls. We're doing direct calls with them once we get on the phone with them based on that email marketing that's going out to them. Now, the email, once again, it's in my voice. It's me reaching out to them.
Right.
So
how do you get the emails? That's what I'm trying to get to.
Oh, okay. Well, there's lots of ways. The company I work with, they apparently there's lists out there for
Got it.
everything, but we also personally, my company uses a product called Discover.org, in terms of that's another product out there where you can buy data sets in different levels. You can pick it. It's very, be as isolated as you want, different departments you want to be talking to, different sizes. And so but these companies I work with, they also have their own access to lists and things like Discover.org as well.
Wow, that is really cool. And so you found the repeatable process on LinkedIn, and it's working.
It is working. It is, and and a lot of the team members, the sales team, some of them use it a lot better than others, and the ones that use it more heavily, they're having more success. Because it kind of, I hate to use that expression, circle the dragon, but that's one of the ways we do it. You go through email, you do phone calls, you do LinkedIn. If you have their phone, you can text them. I mean, there's different ways we can communicate. So if you're just doing one method, I think you're going to have a real failing in terms of trying to get that multiple touch points. You need to actually get something from just the potential lead to actually doing a call with you, a meeting. So that's what the guys use. And, we reinforce it, we support it.
Wow.
And, it's something that we put a lot of money into the last 12 months.
So I think out of everything we've talked about, Andrew, that LinkedIn nugget is probably going to be the most actionable for everyone who's listening. Thank you for that.
Okay.
That's super cool.
No problem. No problem at all.
Once again, everyone, Andrew Cohen, CEO of Evoke New York, evokenewyork.com, on Twitter, EvokeNY. And what's your email address, Andrew, if you want people to email
Sure.
you?
Absolutely. A Cohen, it's ACOHEN, at evokenewyork.com, and that's all spelled out.
Sounds good. Thank you, Andrew. Have a good rest of the day, and thank you for the podcast.
No problem. Thanks, Robert.